Welcome back to Maple Leafs Media. As always, I'm Jake Varcoe, and today I'm joined by Matthew Cardadeiro. We're going to be previewing the Toronto Maple Leafs first round playoff series, a rematch of last year against the Tampa Bay Lightning. I know we're all excited for this, somewhat. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Ready to get these playoffs on the road here, and underway. I think a lot of Leafs fans probably been waiting for this moment of the year. So I'm sure lots of optimism and I'm sure some pessimistic people out there as well. But yeah, it's about to it's almost go time for this team, and um, it's time to earn the paychecks, I think. So.
It's definitely time during those paychecks. It's a rematch of last year's first round playoff series, a series which the Toronto Maple Leafs they had control and they end up blowing the playoff series in the last few games there. Tampa Bay Lightning take it and they run with it, eventually going to the Stanley Cup Finals where they fell to the Colorado Avalanche. Yes, the Leafs were that close just in the first round. They've got a lot. They've got a lot to work on uh, this year going into the playoffs against the Tampa Bay Lightning, who have been a juggernaut.
Yeah. So they're going up against two-time Stanley Cup champions. A lot of those guys on that group. The group has um, lost a little bit, I think, since the previous two seasons. They relatively rolled out probably just as competitive as a lineup 2 years running here. Um, Made a big splash at the deadline to get a guy like Tanner Jeannot, who doesn't play in Tuesday's game. He's missed some action of late, and that's worrisome for the Tampa Bay Lightning management included there because I think obviously a similar situation to the Leafs picking up a guy like Ryan O'Reilly and. He plays his first three games, gets a hat trick against his former team in the Buffalo Sabres, and then gets hit with a shot in the wrong spot on the hand and has a broken finger for and he's out for 4 weeks, right? So luckily he's been able to kind of pick back up right where he left off and doesn't look out of place, doesn't look slow, doesn't look stagnant. So yeah, the deadline additions for both of these teams are going to have to play a factor in the series for sure. I think that a lot of the times in the playoffs where you have two high octane offenses with a lot of firepower up front in the top six, I think a lot of the times that ends up getting canceled out and it ends up working out to the bottom six guys like Aston Reese, Patrick Maroon, Corey Perry, Sam Lafferty, Nola Chari, guys like that will have to make a difference for this team, not giving any sort of benefit of the doubt to guys like Matthews and Marner. Not saying they're able to fall asleep all series because that's not going to be the case whatsoever. They're going to have to play to the fullest of their potentials and do essentially like what they've done all year long is be dominant. This has probably been, I would say, in my eyes, probably the best two-way season that we've seen from an Austin Matthews. Mitch Marner, obviously very responsible on both ends of the ice as well. John Tavares, with all the speculation from last season, obviously the core five there with Riley, Tavares, Nylander, Matthews, and Marner, not getting it done in the playoffs, not being able to kind of get over that hump with that killer instinct and put a team out when they're down. I think he's bounced back very nicely, and I think he's up to 35, 36 goals this year. I think the Leafs have at least four, if not five, 30 goal scorers. Michael Bunting maybe close to 30. I think he's in around the 25 range, but lots of offensive production from plenty of guys in this lineup, and hopefully we see it come through when puck drops on game one.
So we're recording this video with one regular season game remaining on the schedule for each team. The Tampa Bay Lightning finished the season with under 100 points. The Maple Leafs over 100 points. The goal differential for the two teams, Toronto Maple Leafs plus 56, Tampa Bay Lightning plus 24. And as of right now, in their final 10 games, the Toronto Maple Leafs 6-2-2, and the Lightning 3-7-0. So the Tampa Bay Lightning, as you mentioned earlier, they haven't looked the same as they have in years past. This team is starting to age. They've gone really far, deep playoff runs 3 years in a row. So maybe there's some fatigue setting in finally. But with this team, you can never count the Tampa Bay Lightning out. As long as they have Andrei Vasilevsky in goal, and then they have one of the league's best defensemen in Victor Hedman, and they have a forward group containing guys like Steven Stamkos, Nikita Kucherov, Braden Point. They have a solid foundation there for success. And with the Toronto Maple Leafs, we know about all the regular season success that this team's had for years now, but it hasn't translated to playoff success. So they're going to have an opportunity to change the narrative here. Matt, I want to hear your three keys to success for the Maple Leafs in this first round playoff series.
So my three keys to success, which I jotted down here, so I didn't forget them. So my number one is going to be that this team has had very solid defensive numbers this year. They're going to have to defend as a five-man unit, making sure that they're staying above pucks and keeping Tampa Bay's lethal scoring group kind of contained, right? So I think that's going to be a big factor in terms of how well they defend, and we know that they can defend well. I think in the just not even well, we're talking defending. So I'll touch on the penalty kill. I think they're like 23 for 23, if not something around those lines, in their last handful of games. There's obviously been plenty of penalties. Lots that occurred in the Tampa game as well, with plenty of extracurriculars and Michael Bunting ending up in the box more than once. So that just continues that narrative with Bunting and the refs as well. So I think that may be the number one key for them, just defending as a unit and making sure that the communication levels are strong. And I think that's going to translate to them being able to spend more time in the ozone and let their offensive forwards do what they do, get pucks in front of Andrei Vasilevsky and lots of traffic. And I think defending as a unit is going to be where kind of all that comes from. My number two is going to be the core players. I touched on it earlier. I think the core players are going to have to deliver as they've done all season, essentially. And if we're looking at it from a regular season point of view, at the end of the day, the regular season is completely different from playoff hockey. The Leafs know that. The Tampa Bay Lightning know that. Tampa Bay is going to come in. They're going to want to bump and grind down low. They're going to want to chip and chase and finish checks on the Leafs back end. And I think the first point and the second point go hand in hand. I think defending as a unit is going to be number one, because it's going to get the puck in the core players' hands, and that's going to put them in the best position to be able to produce offensively, which is what they get paid the big bucks for, right? Coming through when it matters. So I think the performance of the core players is going to be key in this series for both teams. Obviously, Leafs have a lot on the line here and a lot to prove, and I think that you have to lean on those guys. And my number three is going to be in between the pipes. It's going to be protecting Ilya Samsonov. So I believe that Samsonov will be the outright game one starter. I think that's no secret to anyone following this team or anyone interested in this team whatsoever. He's had a stellar year coming in on a 1-year deal for the Leafs. I think he's like 27, 8 and 4, something along those lines. He's put up great numbers. And he's been in the conversation for one of the best goaltenders this season, in my opinion. And so I think protecting him, when I say protecting, it means, like defending the rush well is going to be key in this series, because Tampa generates so much off the rush with a guy, especially like a guy like Braden Point, and then Stamkos waiting in the realm to one time it as soon as he dishes it off, right? So I think keeping eyes on and keeping tabs on their top players and making sure Samsonov's protected in the sense where he's not having to face 10 to 12 high danger scoring chances a game. I think they're gonna have to try and limit those high danger chances to about 4 to 5 a game to be able to have a chance to come out with 4 victories in this series through 7 games. Um, Touching on like the series itself, I do think it's going to be like a 6 or 7 game series, regardless of maybe how much Tampa has dropped off. Or I just think that both teams are gonna need this sixth and seventh game. Um, Hopefully for the Leafs, it's earlier rather than later, just because if they do manage to get past this Tampa Bay Lightning team, they are going to need Ilya Samsonov for sure. Big question mark hovering over Matt Murray's head with all the injuries he's had to deal with this season. So yeah, I think that's going to be another key to success to hopefully get in the history books and break this kind of first round curse that this organization's had for quite some time now.
Well, to break that first round curse, I'm going to feed off your three keys here. First, for mine, is goaltending. And Ilya Samsonov, he's had a great regular season. Yes, he's the go-to guy for the playoffs, and he will be in for game one, I would assume. So with that being said, Samsonov, not much playoff experience. He's been solid throughout the regular season. But on the other end of things, you have Andrei Vasilevsky, who's proven that time and time again that he can steal playoff series. He's had multiple shutouts and elimination games for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's been a stud back there. And the Toronto Maple Leafs, I'm not asking Samsonov to be Andrei Vasilevsky, but I'm just asking him to put his best foot forward so the Maple Leafs have a chance here. You need solid goaltending to beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, and not just to beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, but to go far and hopefully compete for a Stanley Cup. Most of the teams that have won Stanley Cups or been to the finals have had really solid goaltending. And Samsonov, he's going to have to be solid for the Leafs to succeed here in the playoffs. My next one is keep your foot on the gas. Pedal to the metal for the Toronto Maple Leafs this year. There's been a number of times I can think of where the Maple Leafs have had series victories, they've been up in series rather, and they've had the opportunity to close out a series, and they take their foot off the gas. The other team comes back. How about Montreal? That Montreal series, the Leafs are up 3-1, and they just imploded. Tampa Bay last year, they just needed one win, couldn't get it. This year, if they're in that situation, keep your foot on the gas and close it out, which goes right into my next point. No game seven. No game seven for this team this year, especially in the first round. This team in game seven, just it doesn't go well. So if the Maple Leafs have the opportunity to close out a series in 6 games or less, I think they need to do it, because I don't know if this could be something mental where it's like, oh, here we go again, another game seven. Let's try not to get to that point this year.
Yeah, I completely agree with your 3 keys to success as well. Obviously, the goaltending is going to be a huge factor. I think sometimes, obviously, Ilya Samsonov, he he has a lot of sense of pride, and it's vivid in a lot of his pressers and stuff like that. That he's proud to be a Russian goaltender, and I think going up against another Russian goaltender on the other end of the ice, 200 feet down, I think that in itself is going to motivate him to put forth the best possible effort that he possibly could, and we've seen it from him time and time again this year. Even going up, well, tonight, I'm not sure if Shesterkin will be in the lineup for the Rangers, but I remember I think it was a game that they lost against the Rangers, and I think it was overtime or whatever the case might be. And like he was vividly upset in the post game. Like when he loses, he's not giving you much. He's not giving you much, even if he gets a big win. Um, in terms of quality answers with these reporters on his back every practice, every game. But if when he loses, he does not like losing. Um, and I think the Leafs really, obviously going back to last season with Jack Campbell being their starting goaltender following a Freddie Anderson exit to Carolina. Um, it was evident, and it was almost a narrative in itself that Jack Campbell had a lot of confidence issues, and I think we've seen that play out just the same in Edmonton this season as well, with Stuart Skinner getting extended mid-season, and um, after they just locked up a Jack Campbell for 5 by 5, whatever the terms ended up being. So I think having a guy like Ilya Samsonov is something that in recent years the Leafs really haven't had that kind of um, personality, if you will, in between the pipes, and I think that's going to play a big factor for sure. Um, and yeah, it's just a matter of time here. Obviously tonight, um, going up against the Rangers. Just looking at the lineup here that was tweeted out, I believe Tavares will be getting rest. Samsonov will be getting rest. Looks like Matthews, Bunting, Marner first line. Matthew Nyes is going to play his third and final regular season game for the Leafs this tonight up against the Rangers, skating with O'Reilly and Nylander once again, second game in a row on that line. And then Nola Chari between Kerfoot and Yarncrook. And Connor Timmins looks like he may be playing fourth line right wing tonight for one more game for the Leafs. So feel for a guy like Connor Timmins. Obviously, been a tough year for him. Got extended. There was lots of talk about the ATO goalie situation probably about 48 hours ago now. Um, there was lots of speculation. Joe Wool found out in the middle of the afternoon that he was had to fly to Florida and start a game um, because of the injuries to Samsonov that they wanted to let him sit and heal, obviously, and Murray couldn't go, right? So a little bit unfortunate for Timmins this season, but I give him full marks and full credit to for his attitude this season in terms of kind of being on a almost a taxi squad kind of role, and yeah, I think he's going to play a big part in the Leafs back end. Maybe not a big part, but for sure be a factor um, on the Leafs back end next season. So full credit to him. And looks like Jake McCabe will get his game off tonight as well. So Riley with Shen looks to be the pair that has stuck for the most part, and a little bit of a blunder here. Brody going with Hall and Giordano with Liljegren tonight. So should be interesting. Last game of the season, I'm sure. Both teams, obviously, with Stanley Cup aspirations, won't be going too crazy tonight. But like we've seen, the past 3-4 games for the Leafs have essentially been meaningless, and they've come out with a purpose and really been driving up their sense of play lately. And I would love to see more of that tonight. And at the end of the day, we're all here for entertainment, right? So we want to see the guys going full force, but obviously coming out healthy is the number one priority.
So a couple things from that. Jack Campbell, I feel like the Maple Leafs dodged the bullet, avoiding giving him that long-term contract. And yeah, I mean, Ilya Samsonov, I'd much rather have him on a short-term deal. And after the way he's played this year, I think they should sign him to a longer contract. Then
Myself as well.
in terms of Connor Timmins, there's always casualties in war. And the Maple Leafs, they're going to war this year. They're going to war with themselves. They're going to war with the Tampa Bay Lightning, trying to make it out of the first round and beyond that. So Connor Timmins, he served his purpose while Maple Leafs needed him, and going forward a few years, he might see himself in a role. And I don't really see him getting any ice time in the playoffs this year unless the Maple Leafs have a disaster on the back end in
Yeah.
terms of injuries. Uh, but let's dive
We
into
haven't
some.
even mentioned a guy like Eric Gustafson either. They brought him in, obviously, in the Sandin deal too. So he's there for. It's no secret that the Leafs have all of 9 NHL capable defensemen. Timmins being the ninth. I don't think he'll crack a game, and of course, unless disaster strikes, which I will knock on wood for, and hopefully that's not the case. But yeah, serviceable player. Um, it's all about next season for him, really. Um, yeah, that's my take on Connor Timmins for sure.
Yeah, 100%. So with that, you're mentioning some lines for the Rangers tonight. Let's hear what do you have For what lineup would you like to see for the Toronto Maple Leafs in their playoff series against the Lightning?
Yeah, so it's obviously a lot of this is probably everybody's biggest topic of discussion, whether it be at school, at work, at home, with family, at dinner time. Everyone wants to know what everyone thinks the Leafs game lineup will be. At the end of the day, though, as many brains are putting pen to paper on this subject, it really comes down to one guy, and that's Sheldon Keefe. But I'm going to act Sheldon Keefe for the time being, for the purpose of our podcast today. So my game one lineup is Austin Matthews centering the first line between Michael Bunting and Mitch Marner, followed by Tavares, Nylander, and Yarncrook rolling out to finish up that top six, anyways. And then I have Ryan O'Reilly starting as the third line center with likely a very long leash to definitely pop in and feature in that top six from time to time. But when it comes to game starting 0-0, I believe O'Reilly is best suited on that third line for depth purposes. And I have him lined up with Alexander Kerfoot, who Alexander Kerfoot is not my personal cup of tea, but he's really grown on me over the last 3 weeks, I have to say. He's put the puck in the back of the net a few times, and his game, although he's not lighting up the lamp every single game, has been very purposeful and very, very serviceable player for the Leafs for plenty of years. Obviously got rewarded with wearing an A on his sweater against Tampa Bay last game. So I think the speed that both Kerfoot and Lafferty bring on that third line will benefit a guy like Ryan O'Reilly and give him some more time and space to maybe come in as a guy that's coming in off the rush late and be able to utilize that lethal shot of his. And then for the fourth line, I have Mr. David Kampf lining up alongside Aston Reese and Noel Achari. You'll notice that I do not have a guy like Matthew Knies in my game one lineup. We were just chatting about that a little bit before the game, and before we started recording here, and I do think he'll feature in the Leafs lineup at some point. We'll touch a little bit more on Knies in just a bit here. But yeah, I don't have him in my game one lineup. I have liked a lot of what I've seen from him through two games. We'll see some more tonight, obviously against the Rangers, with
Now,
him getting
Matt,
some top 6 minutes.
if Matthew Knies slots in, what line would you like to see him join in on?
So that's a great question. If Matthew Knies does slot in, I think he cannot be on the fourth line. I think he can play him on um, any other line except the fourth line. I would want him playing with some skilled players, some guys who can move the puck, some guys he can get in on a forecheck with and cycle, because that's where he's at his best. He's not a flashy player at all. He's a very I'm just gonna flip to my little scouting report that I jotted down on Nice. He's a guy that's willing to block shots. We've seen that through two games. I think he's blocked like 3, 4 shots in 2 games. Willing to put his body on the line. He's got an NHL size when it comes to his frame. And then his offensive awareness is obviously there. He had a stellar season, 21 goals, 21 assists for the University of Minnesota this season, making it all the way to the Frozen Four championship and a devastating loss 10 seconds into overtime for him, Logan Cooley, Jimmy Snuggerud as well, which had they were arguably the best line in college hockey this season. Two of those guys, Cooley and Knies, obviously being finalists for the Hobey Baker, but Adam Fantilli, the projected number 2 pick out of Michigan for the NHL draft this summer, comes up with the Hobey Baker. But yeah, they had some stellar seasons, and I think he definitely checks into one of the top 3 lines. I would maybe say that the third line, if O'Reilly is playing third line center, would likely be where I would want him. Somebody that's defensively responsible, is going to be on the right side of the puck and seems to be a really big talker as per a lot of presses that I've heard lately with Sheldon Keefe, obviously trying to get kind of Tavares and Nylander rolling again as of late. And it seems to have worked for Nylander, obviously picking up 3 points last game. So should work for Nyes as well to kind of get him rolling and obviously be able to be a big support. And when it comes to coming off the ice for a shift and you get to the bench, and I'm sure O'Reilly will be picking up an iPad or two and kind of depicting some plays for him and help him better understand what it takes to play at the NHL level, which is obviously a big, big jump. I think a lot of people need to understand that coming from college hockey, although he is a Leafs top prospect, it does take a toll in terms of the jump and the speed and everything like that. But yeah, and then I have on my back end to finish up my game one lineup, McCabe Brody, Riley Shen, Giordano Holl, and obviously Samsonov starting in goal with. It's a toss up. If Matt Murray can go, he's backing up. If he's not, it's likely Joseph Woll, who, again, not hoping for any injuries to Ilya Samsonov, but if that does end up being the case, or I don't know, I don't even know. Maybe you want to give Samsonov. Who knows? Maybe Samsonov's still nursing an injury game one, and Murray's not good to go, and Joe Woll just backstopped the Leafs to a 4-3 victory over the Tampa Bay Lightning just Tuesday. So I wouldn't be opposed to him starting game one either if you really had to. So yeah, obviously that McCabe Brody pair going to be the shutdown. Riley Shen, a little bit of a hybrid line. Give Riley somebody defensively responsible, a very simple player, and Luke Shen, he's going to throw his body around all night. Going to terrorize the opposition, which is what he does best. And then a line that we saw a pair, anyways, that we saw early on in the season with Mark Giordano and Justin Holl, which served as the Leafs' top pair for, I would say, 15 to 20 games. Two proven veterans know what they need to do to be successful. So I think that gives them some good disbursement of size and skill and defensive prowess. On the back end.
All right. So before I start my lineup here, I want to make it clear that this is not the lineup that I envision Maple Leafs rolling out in game one. This is just what I'd like to see. So I have first line, it is Austin Matthews, William Nylander, Calle Jarnkrok. Second line, I'm bringing back John Tavares, Ryan O'Reilly, and Mitch Marner. I think that line worked. Didn't get to see enough of it. However, it worked, and I understand the fact that you're taking away the Conn Smythe winning center from the bottom six there, and you're also taking away John Tavares' ability to impact the game from the center position. But I think if you load that lineup, that's a really solid top six you have right there. And then I have Michael Bunting with Noel Acciari and Alex Kerfoot, Zach Aston Reese with David Kampf and Sam Lafferty. And I do envision Matthew Knies lining up into this, like slotting into this lineup at some point during the playoff series. And what I would do there is I would move Michael Bunting down to the fourth line, take out Zach Aston Reese, put Matthew Knies under the third line with Noel Acciari and Alex Kerfoot. That's just the way that I'm looking at things for my forward group. And on the back end, I got Riley Shen, Giordano Liljegren, and McCabe Brody. Notice how I don't have Justin Holl. I think a lot of people will be a little happy about that, but I do think Justin Holl will likely find himself in the lineup come playoff time. And in goal, it's Ilya Samsonov.
Clear. It's very clear.
Yes, crystal clear. Pull out the crystal ball for that one, right?
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit more about Nyes. I'm not sure if you caught his first couple games, Jake, but or even maybe saw some highlights from him. What did you think of his game?
Well, I think that this is a guy. He's a 6'3", 200-pound left winger, and he's a power forward. That's something that the Maple Leafs can use, especially at the left wing position. If they can, I feel like he should find himself slotting into the lineup come playoff time because he's a player who has a skill set that the Toronto Maple Leafs can utilize in order to score some more goals, in order to just have a higher impact game. Like he can use that body, stand in front of the net. I'm envisioning him I do not like the Toronto Maple Leafs second power play unit, and I envision Matthew Knies making an impact on that unit.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree to that point as well. I think that second power play unit, I know Sheldon Keefe was obviously trying to get a look at Ryan O'Reilly on that top power play unit as of late in the last couple of games, and obviously experimenting with more than just the power play. A lot of line combinations he's been switching up and rolling out, obviously due to the fact that he's trying to give some players some rest as well. But yeah, that second power play unit, there at times like they'll honestly sometimes on a bad night for the Leafs top unit, the second unit just really comes out with a mindset of getting the puck to the net, especially a guy like Cal Yarncrook really kind of definitely tends to have a factor on that second power play. And I think yeah, adding a guy like Matthew Knies into that group would definitely raise some concern for the Tampa Bay Lightning when you just had to pour your heart out to defend against Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, John Tavares, and Morgan Riley, and now you got who knows maybe an Eric Gustafson. Maybe they go 11 forwards, 7D, and maybe Eric Gustafson's power play quarterback for that second unit, and you're rolling out Matthew Knies and guys like Kerfoot and Ryan O'Reilly who can clearly make an impact on the faceoff draw and gain possession of the puck for these guys to get the puck to the net, and a lot of big strong bodies on that unit that would be able to chip in and be a factor for sure if the top unit can't get it done right. So yeah, totally agree. I think obviously Michael Bunting is on an expiring contract, and I think Matthew Knies has to be in your top six. Maybe not has to be, but they'd like him to be in their top six. Obviously, have him signed for the next 2 seasons at $925,000 with an entry level deal. Um, I think in the future, if this guy works out for this organization, I think he's Austin Matthews left winger. Um, and I'm trying to kind of obviously very small sample size at the NHL level so far, but just kind of been trying to keep tabs on him all season, kind of knowing eventually he was going to make his way over to Toronto for a playoff run and get obviously a handful of games with the timing of the final in the Frozen Four. And I think my biggest NHL comparable that I can maybe bring to the table and say would be maybe like a Chris Kreider, obviously lots of size and skill, NHL caliber shot, likes to get in on the forecheck, had a really strong shift against an NHL veteran, Mark Stahl, against the Florida Panthers in his NHL debut. Worked the puck down low really well and was keeping pucks alive for guys like Achari and Aston Reese to start up a cycle again. And I think that's going to be useful in the bottom six, kind of gives them a little bit of a wild card. Not obviously maybe the biggest scouting report on a guy like Knies right now, and maybe be able to kind of tap into his potential a little early here, obviously, but definitely like be a factor for them. And the only real downfall to having him maybe in the lineup more so than a guy like an Aston Reese is maybe the defensive responsibilities and stuff like that. And Zach Aston Reese has been a very strong penalty killer for the Leafs this season, and they obviously have plenty of capable penalty killers, but which would be a decision that comes down to Keefe at the end of the day and how he wants to utilize his forwards and in certain areas where they're best served, right? So, but definitely think he could be a wild card for this team in the postseason if they do end up making a run for sure. I'm thinking big picture. I'm thinking beyond first round. So I'm hoping that he ends up being a factor for this team.
And I'm also hoping that I feel like the Maple Leafs, they got him under contract. We know he's their top prospect in the system. He's now joined the team for a couple games here in the regular season. Let's give him a shot. That's the way I'm looking at it. Like, what do you have to lose by entering someone who has that much potential into a third line left wing spot?
There's
I
just
don't.
almost there's so much like on this series for this franchise as a whole. That's where it would be tough, but yeah, it's something that needs to be experimented with in my eyes.
Yeah, I think that you have to be aggressive, and I think Matthew Knies, he, based off everything that we've heard about him, what we've seen him do in university with Minnesota, be a Hobie Baker Award finalist, a nominee. Um, I think we have to see some Matthew Knies in the playoffs here. See what impact he can make in more than just a few regular season games with a lineup that doesn't even look the same. Like let's see what he can do. And if things aren't working out, you pull him, obviously. But I want to see Matthew Knies in the playoffs.
Yeah, he's been a factor for this team as of late that um, kind of probably one of the top two, if not top three reasons you're watching the last few handful of games here for the Toronto Maple Leafs season. I know that's been my main reason to make sure I get in front of the TV to actually sit and watch him shift by shift and see his game and what he has to bring to the table. And hopefully he can continue to kind of keep his good form rolling that he's obviously had with Minnesota this season, and bring that to the Toronto Maple Leafs lineup. Come if not game one, maybe game two or three, but I think he will definitely feature for sure, and I think that's exciting for Leafs fans to be able to witness their top prospect from in the organization as a whole, being able to feature so quickly and maybe give him a little bit of a break because there is an adjustment period here. So let's not get too hung up on Matty Knies. Let's definitely got to hone in on the guys that have done it all season, and those are the guys that are going to come down and make the difference here. And hopefully he can be a nice complementary piece if need be.
Definitely. There's no denying like Leafs fans want to see him enter the lineup, but he's not the be all end all for this team. The Toronto Maple Leafs, they have a goal at hand with or without Matthew Knies in their lineup, and that is to go far in the playoffs and eventually raise the Stanley Cup. It all starts with the Tampa Bay Lightning in a rematch of last year's playoff series. Matt, do you have any closing words here?
I can't. I think we've had a very productive conversation today, Jake. I think we've really covered everything that maybe Leafs fans have been discussing amongst themselves over the last handful of games, couple of weeks. So yeah, it's go time for this team. We'll get another look at Matty Knies tonight. And yeah, hopefully they come out unscathed and injury free and they are ready to get rolling come game one in Toronto against the Lightning.
Definitely. It's playoff time. Get those playoff boots on. Let's go. I'm excited. I know you are too. Thank you for watching this video on Maple Leafs Media. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned. There's going to be a bunch of stuff coming out throughout the NHL playoffs. Hopefully, it's a long run for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Give me some more content to create. Uh, Make sure you like this video. Thanks for watching. I'm Jake Varcoe, joined by Matthew Cardadeiro.